Hello everyone, you is all very welcome. Thanks for coming along this afternoon. My name is Mary Breslin and I'm a worker with the RETHINK project. The RETHINK project is a resilience building project funded by the lottery for the next 3 years to help build people's resilience. And I think over this past year, especially with the COVID-19 situation, I think resilience is something that we all are looking to improve within ourselves. Within this project, each year we are tasked with organising a campaign. And this campaign, the theme for the campaign this year is Take 5 to Rethink the January Blues. And as part of the campaign, we have organised 5 workshops this week. This is the third of the workshops. They're on at 2 o'clock every day. And today we have Sean Gallagher, who is going to be our facilitator and is going to be talking about motivation and coping, which I think we can all definitely benefit from at the minute. And just to let you know, there's 2 more workshops on tomorrow and Friday. The one tomorrow is around bereavement and how we can cope with bereavement. And the one on Friday is around seasonal affective disorder. So I think the 2 of them are quite relevant in the situation. So without further ado, I am going to introduce you now to Sean, and Sean is going to be the person, your go-to person for the session. Thank you. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Mary, and thanks everybody for coming along. Today we are looking at coping and remaining resilient. Coping and remaining resilient at any time can be difficult. Coping and remaining resilient during an on-off pandemic can be more difficult, because when you have one lockdown and you come out of it and you're just breathing a sigh of relief, suddenly you're hurtled into a second lockdown, and you're not even out of that, you're not even allowed out of that, where suddenly you're rattled into a third lockdown. So what we're going to try to look at today are different things that we can try, even from home, to try to keep ourselves positive, to try to keep ourselves focused, to try to deal with the emotional and mental fallout that can come from being stuck in the one environment all the time. Claire's going to be jogging me along today. She's looking after the slides. So Claire, I'm ready to go when you're ready, or as we're now going to call her, the lovely Debbie McGee. Look, we all have difficult times. We have difficult times at the best of times. And what I would say about people in our community is we are good at dealing with difficult times. Now, suddenly the environment changes. Suddenly we're not allowed out and about. Suddenly all the places and the things that we know are closed down or they're shut down. There's a certain fear factor comes into that. There's a certain factor of being made feel that you're now cocooned and you're not allowed to do anything. If you have been used to working in difficult times before, as any community in the north of Ireland has been over many, many years, there are tools that you're already using. There are skills that you use to make yourself feel better, to make your family feel better, to support other people and to support yourself, that are still there to be used. So we're going to look at those briefly today and see where we go. So Claire, if we move just on to the next slide, please. You're going to suffer from stress, anxiety, fear, expectation. Stress comes from many sources. Now, when people talk about stress and they talk about anxiety and they talk about all of these things, the line in which they come is, first of all, we think about something and we might overthink it and we get afraid of it. That releases stress. Stress builds up, and if stress doesn't go away normally as it should, what it does then is it introduces anxiety. Our brain always takes us to the worst case scenario, whether we're in good physical and mental health or not good physical and mental health. The brain does what therapists call catastrophizes. It makes you think of the worst case scenario. Interestingly, it's trying to protect you, but it's taking it from your experiences, but it always takes you to the worst case scenario. We need fear, we need stress, we need anxiety. But when they overstay their welcome, that's when the problem starts. When then we're denied, basic things that we would normally do, going out for a walk, staying out, going into shops, meeting people, calling into houses, that adds to it, because then suddenly everything is closed down and we're closed down. And that's, we have normal changes in our life. We have unexpected events, so a normal change is leaving the house, birth of a child, getting older, buying a car, meeting a girl, meeting a fella. Unexpected, the death of a loved one, job loss, illness, winning the lottery. We'd all like the last one. We'd all like to win the lottery. And then there's developments, and we watch the news. We can see poverty and crime, school and violence. You can't watch the news now. The two main subjects for the last number of months have been COVID-19 and Donald Trump. So thank God we got rid of one virus, but we're stuck with the other. Political trends. And maybe overwatching things isn't helpful either, and we're going to look at that now as we move on in the presentation. So Claire, if we can move on to the next slide. I want you to think on this saying, and I'd like you to think on it because it's really appropriate to where we find ourselves. Worry doesn't take away tomorrow's troubles, it takes away today's peace. So if we continually focus on worry, on concern, if we don't break that, if for instance we are sitting day in and day out and we're watching every news cycle, we're watching breakfast TV, we're watching Good Morning Britain, we're watching the 1 o'clock news, we're watching the 6 o'clock news, we are being bombarded and inundated with, there are 100,000 people dead in the United Kingdom. There are almost 20,000 people dead here. That, we're in severe lockdown in Scotland, we're in severe lockdown in Northern Ireland, we're in severe lockdown in England, and we're locked down in Wales. It's constant, it's a stream. It impacts on how we think, it impacts on how we feel. People who normally would take this in their stride and go, right, this is happening, but we have to get on with the normal things of life that we can get on with, aren't doing that. Because this worry has been centered on them. There are things in life, they are controllables and there are uncontrollables. And the things we can control are the things that we can do something about. The things we can't control are obviously the things that we can't do anything about. But if we can control them, we don't need to worry about them. If we can't control them, then maybe it is about asking, why bother worrying about them? So worry doesn't take away tomorrow's troubles. It does take away your peace for today because you're sitting worried and anxious and overthinking. So it's about trying to take a step back from that and giving yourself a breather and taking a break. So Claire, if we move on to the next. Claire, I keep meaning to call you Debbie McGee, and I shouldn't be thinking that at all. There's an impact of trauma and lockdown. We have a sense of powerlessness, anxiety, we're shut down, we have fear, we have sadness, we have that sense of helplessness that we can't do anything about. We now have, we've gotten to the point where the vaccines are being administered and people are feeling a wee bit more hopeful. And then you get somebody that comes on the TV and says, well, we don't know what the impact of the vaccines will be. We don't know if it'll stop you giving it to somebody else or anybody else from giving it to you. And suddenly they're putting people back. So that sense of powerlessness and helplessness, that sadness can lead to depression. We can feel overwhelmed. Your brain's in overdrive. Your brain's in overdrive and it is doing exactly as I said to you earlier, it's taking you to the worst case scenario. Think about how you would advise your friends to deal with things. Think about what you would say to your children or your husband or your wife, your boyfriend or your girlfriend to help them deal with things. Think about when somebody is up to high water mark or high dough. How do you talk them down? How do you talk them out of overdrive? Think about how you do that for a minute, because we all do it. And think about how you might use that to help yourself. It is time to get back to normal as far as possible. We need to do that. We need to do that because not only is this thing impacting on us, our own thinking is impacting on us. Okay, Claire. Resiliency. Older generations are more resilient. Generations that went out and went for long walks out the line or up hills, who were on walls and fell off walls, who hung on to the back of milk floats, who played in the street, who played football, who played alabala, who swung around lampposts on ropes. These are a more resilient generation. These are the generation that might have gone through the wars, the troubles. All of these things made them not only survive, but thrive. And that's what resiliency is. It's that thing that when we fall in our arse, as sometimes we do, when we drop, the resiliency is the thing that teaches us to get up, step up, and do it again. You know, our generations, I suppose, more so than some of the younger generations, have been able to do that because it's inherent in us, because we went through so much more. We cause it, the younger generations, probably too much. We don't necessarily let them go out and play because, you know, there are bad men and women out there. The streets aren't safe. There are drug dealers. There are all of those things that are impacting on their lives now. But the truth of the matter is, in order to remain strong, we have to stretch ourselves and we have to get up, take a deep breath, and move forward. Use the experience of landing on our backside to teach us how to avoid that in future. So it's the ability not just to survive, but to thrive and move on. Okay, Claire, thank you. Stress. Now, we're going to go through all of this because I think sometimes we just accept that we have these things and we don't necessarily understand what they are. And older adults, people like myself sliding desperately towards old age, you can have digestive issues, you can be irritable, you can frequently worry, your stress can bring on headaches and pains, you can be depressed, frequent crying, you can have fears about health and safety, you can feel tired, your sleeping pattern can be off the left. That's going now, whilst that's for older adults, that's happening to all of us. Young people who don't have a structure at the moment are staying up into the early hours and sleeping into the late day. And part of it is because they're living in their bedrooms. But we'll come back to that. The bedroom is for sleep. The brain recognizes certain rooms for certain things. But if you live in that room, the brain isn't going to recognize it as the place where you sleep. For adults, there's a fear about health and safety. Signs of stress would be lethargy, tiredness again, headaches again, you know, muscle aches, chest pains. Stress is one of those things that when it hits, you know it has hit. I often hear people, people often come to me as a therapist and say, I'm stressed. Honestly, real stress is quite physically painful. It's really quite physically painful. So you can get chest pains and rapid heartbeat. You can have frequent illness, you know, loss of sexual desire, low self-esteem. How you think about yourself is really impacted on by it. So if you have a good sense of yourself, if you're a confident person, if your glass is half full, you will tend to deal with things maybe with a more positive outlook, looking for solutions. People who tend to lean towards pessimism and depression and be down a lot and feel that that's the only place that they're going to go, they then can feel more trapped within that. And that's when their stress levels can really fly off the scale. Children and teens, psychosomatic complaints, headaches, stomach aches, sleep disturbance, difficulty falling or staying asleep, nightmares or night terrors, again, acting out, they might show more anger and frustration. They will avoid schoolwork. I think there's an awful lot of parents that I'm talking to at the moment that are saying the struggle trying to get their teenagers and their children to focus on the schoolwork online is proving very, very difficult, which adds to the stress levels in the house where everybody is literally in the one space. And then there's excessive worry or sadness, and there's aggressive behavior. So these are some of the signs of stress. I mean, if you, I'm laughing because really what I'm trying to do here is build up a sense of optimism. But if we look at this, it's like an episode of EastEnders. So we'll move quickly on from that and we'll try to get to the positive stuff. So Claire, if I can, thank you. What about your self-care? We are amazing at looking after everybody else. Absolutely amazing at looking after everybody else. We look to solve everybody else's problems, everybody else's needs before we look towards our own. We're very, very generous in doing that. But self-care is part of your daily living. It is the care taken by you towards your own health and well-being, whether it's in your workplace, whether it's in your homes, whether it's in your neighborhoods, whether it's your local community or elsewhere. Your self-care. We are amazing, and I said this earlier, but we're amazing at giving advice to other people. about what they should do and how they should do it and what would help. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, it's amazing advice. But 10 times out of 10, we should be taking that advice ourselves. We should be listening to what we're saying to other people. Because if it helps them, it surely will help us. Now, self-caring is the actions that we take for ourselves. We have to maintain a good physical and mental health. That would be exercise. It could be going out and about, going for a walk, exercising in the house. Meet social and psychological needs. So we're in the house, so we feel we can't see people, so we can't engage with people, we can't connect with people, so we can't support people. That's not necessarily the case, of course. There are other ways of doing that now. We can still go out. We are still entitled to go for a walk. We are still entitled to talk to people. So then there's psychological needs like preventing illness or accidents. What about your self-care? Are you actually looking to your self-care, or have you abdicated, or have you felt there's no point? What's the point? We're going to be stuck in this and this isn't moving, and what's the point of doing this? Even if you're thinking like that, there's every point of looking after yourself to maintain yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, in all of those areas. Not every home is going to be a happy home, and not every home is going to be a balanced home. We have to think here too, maybe of the people that might be on here who are engaged or are involved in relationships that aren't healthy, that are, those that are suffering abuse and violence, whether it's mental, emotional, sexual, all of those things. But we also have to think about how we then look to ourselves, how we look after ourselves. These sessions are great for making us think. But we have to take into account, we don't know all the impacts that are going on people, but you know yourself the impact that is going on you. And you have to think about how you can deal with that and come up with solutions that will help you remain sane, balanced, placed, and at least, overcoming your anxiety and your fears. Okay, Claire, thank you. Catch it, check it, and change it. It's a phrase that when I was studying, this is what they say: catch it, check it, change it. Our thinking can be wrong. I have used the example before, and some of you will have heard of it. I am 6'3" with grey hair. George Clooney is 6'3" with grey hair. And apparently George Clooney is raging that he doesn't look like me. I know it's hard to believe. Of course it's hard to believe. Do you think George Clooney sits and thinks about these things? Of course he doesn't. I can think this all day. It's not going to make it true. I can continue to think it. It's not going to make it a fact. It's not going to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sometimes our thinking is just wrong. Think about times when people have looked at you and you thought, God, he doesn't like me or she doesn't like me. Look the way they looked at me. Or think about experiences that you've had where you thought one thing and the truth was another. I for years there was a woman that lived in my street who used to avoid me and ignore me, not because of anything she had done, but because she just thought I looked like an arrogant snob, and that's what she believed I was. She didn't know me. She just thought I was like an arrogant snob. Now maybe it's been 6'3" and the way I carry myself or whatever. I was never a ballet dancer, but it's interesting that she felt comfortable enough to tell me that when she got talking to me. Keep thinking. Where's your evidence for your thinking? Is it true? So if you catch it, you have to trust yourself. You've got to respect your own thinking. You've got to step back and understand where the thought is coming from. Then you have to challenge it. Is it logical? Is it based on emotion? Is it actually based on truth? Because sometimes it's not. And then catch it, check it, change it. Look at how you might think of that differently. Look at how you might look at that differently. Look at how you might do that differently. Our thinking can be a great positive, but if we get caught in the nervous anxiety and we go downhill and we go down the negative route and we don't challenge it, we'll become nearly imprisoned by that and we'll be afraid to do anything. So catch it, check it, change it. Your thinking isn't always right. And as for George Clooney, I don't care whether he thinks he is raging, whether he looks like me or not. I'm raging, I don't look like him, and I don't have his money. So let's move on, Claire, to the next. Building resilience is like doing exercise to build muscle, to lose weight, to define your body, to make yourself look better, to make yourself feel better. Increasing your resilience requires time and dedication. Now, as I said, for older generations, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and upwards, that resilience has been there and built up over many, many years of experiences. But it's like anything. If you want to get a degree, if you want to pass an exam, if you want to get a six pack, go down to Tesco's, they're only £5.6. If you want to look muscular, if you want good hair, if you want good beauty treatment, all of those things. If you don't put in the work, you don't get what you're looking for. And then you can't really sit and give off about that and dial down the phone. You know, I tried. Well, you did 1.5 hour in an exercise bike, or you went on and looked at the gym and looked at all the young people in there looking fit and whatever and thought, stuff that for a game of soldiers, I'm not doing that. People are conditioned to think of resilience as something like a personality trait. Either you have it or you don't. That's not true. It's not the case at all. With intention and practice, you can become more resilient. No matter what our age is, no matter what we do, no matter how we think, no matter what our job is, we can build our resilience. We learn from our experiences. We learn what to do, what not to do. We learn what we can do something about and what we can't do something about. Keep connected to family and friends, groups and organizations. Those support elements are fantastic at building us up, at building up our own sense of self-value, our sense of self-worth, our sense of self-esteem. We need to continually do it. No matter what, if you stop going to the gym, your muscles will flag. If you stop going to the walking club, your legs will get sore every time you go out to do it. We have to realize it's about giving the time and the effort. So sorry, I got cut off there. Maybe that was deliberate. Maybe you have had enough. So think about that. Building resilience is like building a muscle. The more effort you put in, the more resilience you will build. And you're going to have good days in it, and you're going to have not so good days. So it's about putting the value above the feeling. It's like somebody that runs every day, whether it's hail, rain, or snow. They might look out the window one morning and think, oh my Lord, the last thing I want to do is go out in that. But that's the feeling. But the value is, I know if I do go out in that, even if I do get soaked, I feel better. I go for a walk in the morning, my anxiety levels go down. And that's exactly true. Your anxiety levels will go down even with just a short 10 to 15 minute walk in the morning. So if we can move on there, please, Claire. What helps you be strong under stress? So Claire, if you just hit the button, they should come up. Think back to a rough time in your life. What did you do that helped? And we said this at the start of the process. What did you do? What helped you? What helped you deal with things before? You talked to friends, you talked to family, you worked it out, you went and got advice. You were happy that somebody listened to you, you were happy that you were offered solutions. Then you make your choice and decision. Think about that rough time and identify what qualities were helpful in keeping you resilient. For instance, do you have a good sense of humor? Are you dogged? Are you determined? Are you focused? Do you sit back and think about things? Do you react? Do you respond? What skills did you use at that time when you were under stress before that helped you? I'm telling you, this is not magic. These are things that we would do all of the time. Whether we talk to ourselves, whether we G ourselves up, whether we get somebody else to G us up, whether we talk out our fears and our expectations and let others begin to support us. It's only when we stay silent and push everything down that we become much more stressful. So think about that. You've done this before. You've done it many, many times over many, many occasions, and not just in this pandemic. You have the skills, you have the tools, you've used them before, and they're there to be used again. So think about what you as an individual use. Think about what you as a couple or a family have used, or a group or an organization. You've done this before, you can do it again, and you've all the skills to do it. And that's where resilience is built like a muscle. You keep at it and you don't give up. Okay, Claire. Be social. Keep in contact with others. Your rituals, your routines, and your traditions are important. And what I mean by that, if you're used to talking to people on the phone, you're used to seeing them in the street, you're used to being in contact with them, even though the contact will change a bit because of where we find ourselves at the minute, don't stop that contact. Those are the things that are your lifeblood. Those are the things that will help you. So whether your group has suddenly gone from being physical and out and about to online and Zoom and go webinar, I mean, I get it. I have to say it's better always face to face, but for the time being, don't give up on that. Those people are still there. Those connections are still there. Those routines are still there. Let them continue to feed you. Maintain your supportive social networks, your close family and kin and friendship relationships. Let them still give you something, even if it's not exactly to the degree that we would have it normally, even because we can't socially mix and we have to socially distance and whatever. We can still have those connections. Do not give up on your social connections. Don't become closed down. Give yourself somewhere where you can still have a voice and you can still speak to the people who have always been a help in the past. Right, Claire. We'll go on to the next. I have spiritual on here because an awful lot of people have a spirituality and a sense of self and they have a faith. So that can help you have a positive or optimistic outlook. And meditation, reflection, prayer, all of these things are good at focusing us and keeping us in the here and now. Often we're away in flights of fancy, daydreaming about the past, or we're away ahead worrying about the future. And what that doesn't allow us to do is to stay here and now and think about things as they are. So if you do pray, keep your prayer. If you meditate, use meditation. It keeps you in the here and now. It makes you aware of who you are and what you're doing. It allows you to close your eyes and work on what's worrying you. And reflection is the same thing. The Irish, Scots, and Welsh are Celts, so they tend to dwell on things. So they tend to go down and down and down and down and down and down and down, like going down a hole and not coming back up. Reflection is about thinking about it, looking at it, considering its impact on you, and then asking yourself what you can do about it. What are the values that you live by, for instance? There are important values that everybody lives by. So stick to those values. Those values don't suddenly go out the window because we're in the middle of this thing. In fact, those values help enhance what we can do for ourselves and what we can do for others. So don't think that all of this goes to one side or is parked up because of what we're going through at the minute. Not at all. If these things have carried you through before, I assure you they will carry you through again. Okay, Claire. Resilient families are flexible. They stay connected. They use their lifelines. They use their lifelines, and it's a bit like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? We have lifelines. We have people. We have groups. We have organizations. We have family members. We have friends. We have acquaintances. Stay connected. Use them to your advantage. Let yourself be heard and listened to, and listen and share with others. Share clear, consistent messages. Don't hide your emotions. We have this thing about, we can't let people see our fear or trepidation or anxiety. But all you do then is you shove them down and they sit there and they wait to come back to bite you on the backside. So if you're afraid, say you're afraid. Somebody that you're talking to may very well give you a reason not to be afraid. They may be able to reassure you. solve problems together. If we're on our own, if we're single, or we're in families, or we're in couples, we solve problems together. And we can do that by being honest about how things are impacting on us and why they're impacting on us. There's no point holding all this stuff in, because when it comes out, it'll come out at the wrong time and in the wrong context. Use your lifelines, use your family, use your friends, use your support networks. Okay, Claire. Now, you probably think I'm rattling through this, and to an extent I am, because I want to give you the opportunity, if you have questions or thoughts at the end of this, to be able to share them. And because probably there's too many slides also, so I'm trying to get through them. We talked about thoughts before, so thought, feeling, action. Every thought you think, every feeling you feel, releases chemical messages to your body. These are hormones, and they either rejuvenate you and relax your body, or they cause you tension, wear and tear. Your mind and heart therefore affect your physical body every moment. Therefore, your habitual thoughts and feelings indirectly create either health or ill health. We talked before about being positive and optimistic, negative and pessimistic. We talked about how we talk to ourselves. If we talk to ourselves in a negative way, if we're being self-critical all the time, if we put ourselves down all the time, we'll tend to be much more stressful, and we'll tend to have more anxiety and fear. The body then releases, we talked before about stress, fear, stress, anxiety. Anxiety releases a drug called cortisol into your system. And you know when you get that feeling in your stomach that we call anxiety, that's the cortisol in your body. The body, the brain does that when it thinks you're in a dangerous situation. And often you're not in a dangerous situation. You might be in a new situation. It might be a new thing that you're trying out. It might be a different group, a different sport, a different pastime. But that's what the body does. We get tense about it. How we deal with things, how we think about things, how we talk about things will impact on how we feel. So thought, feeling, action. If you think it and you feel it, you'll action it, you'll take an action with it. But it's up to you whether you stop that thought and feeling and think about whether you have evidence for it, what you can do about it. Can you control it? Can you work with it? So remember, your thoughts and feelings indirectly create either health or ill health. So think about whether your thoughts and feelings and how you talk to yourself are positive or negative. And ask yourself, right, if they're positive, keep going down that route. If they're negative, what can I do to change how I think about this? And that's going to take a very real conscious effort to do that. Because if we're constantly kicking ourselves in the ass, then we think that's what we should be doing. And it's behavior that we learn. We learn how to be negative, we learn how to be positive, we learn whether to talk to ourselves in a good way or a bad way. So think about that. Think about how you're doing that. Be aware of your thoughts and ask yourself, do you have to think that way? Is there another way of doing with it? Is there another way of thinking about it? Is there another way of dealing with it? Okay, Claire, thank you. Resilience again ties into the emotional. If you're used to problem solving, and any family, any couple, any individual has had to deal with and problem solve. Communicate things, communicate feelings appropriately, interact respectfully and safely, respond sensitively and effectively to others. I mean, we always get the thing, you always hear about tough love and whatever. So I'm feeling down, I'm not feeling great. Up your arse, get up there and go do something positive. That doesn't help sometimes. If somebody is trying to tell us something and they ask us to listen and we start telling them what to do, then we're not doing what they asked us to do. We're good at problem solving. We're amazing at problem solving for everybody else, not always for ourselves. And if we're not great at communicating feelings, or we're not really encouraged to do it, and we're not great at communicating how we feel or what we think or what's going on or what our fears are, that can prove a stumbling block at times. But if you stop and think about it, there are people that we all trust. There are people that we tell everything to, whether it's our best friends, whether it's our family members, whether it's the closest person to us. That's how we should communicate, not just with them, but with others. And remember, even if you're annoyed or fed up, or the person is repeating the same thing, respond sensitively to them, because that's how they feel. And at that point, they can't really do anything about that. And that's why they're discussing it with you, so that you can help them do something about it. Okay, Claire, thank you. Right, here's what we need in resilience. Connections. We need support, not just in a crisis. We don't need support, we need support full stop. So we build what's called, we keep using this phrase, support network. That's your mates, your best friends, your acquaintances, your family, your brothers and sisters, your husbands and wives, your nieces and nephews, and your grandchildren. People who understand other people help you feel less alone in times of need. And because they've been there in good times and bad times, it's not just a crisis. They are there. They have helped you become who you are. They will help you rebuild your resilience. You know, different age groups may try different approaches, but ultimately being connected, talking to each other, listening to each other are a real help in learning new coping skills and feeling that we're part of something and we're not on our own. We all need to bring our coping skills into play during this crisis, so we can work through the emotional shifts we're likely to experience. You're going to have high days, low days, good days, bad days, good temper, bad temper. You're going to sometimes be afraid, sometimes not. Sometimes you're going to be the person that other people go to and you'll make them feel better. Sometimes you'll go to them to make you feel better. So there are some coping strategies, and some we've talked about. But deep breathing, for instance. Deep breathing, sitting even for 5 or 10 minutes in the morning with your feet on the floor and sitting in the chair. Deep breathing from below your belly button, holding your breath, breathing from your depth, holding it, breathing it out. That calms your nervous system. It works whether you're experiencing symptoms of panic or general discomfort. Try square breathing. Trace a square in your palm and count as you draw each line. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Do that for 20 times. Don't stand up. I'm telling you this now. Don't stand up straight away after it, because you'll be dizzy. Because deep breathing makes you dizzy. But it should help you control your anxiety levels. So if you're doing that maybe 2 or 3 times a day, that will help. Meditation, daily exercise is a natural stress reliever. A good 10 to 15 minute walk in the morning at a normal pace will help with your anxiety. It's great cardiovascular exercise. Get out for walks, or try a live stream exercise class. That's what we're on at the moment because we can't meet up socially. But even to meditate, spend time just sitting thinking about a place, a person, a situation that has made you feel good, made you feel better. You might have a list of songs or pieces of music that lift your mood. You might have films, TV shows that lift your mood, that make you feel better. You might have books that you read that absolutely help you feel more positive. Those type of things can be used here. Those are the type of things that when we can't get out, these are the things that we can access here and now. So meditation, visualizing yourself in a happier place during a happier time, but having the image of the mind of being on a beach, being up a hill, being on a holiday, being in a place, even that to give you that break from the norm. And deep breathing is an excellent one. Focusing on your well-being, focus on your sleep. Sleep's a difficult one. People are going to bed, they can't sleep. Then they try to force themselves to relax, and they can't relax. And so then they just get more frustrated. If you go to bed and you cannot sleep, get up, go into the living room, put on a lamp, have a hot drink. Don't put on the big light, put on a lamp. Have a hot drink or read for 20 minutes. You will begin to feel drowsy again. Your brain knows that your bedroom is where you go to sleep. It also knows that if you're not sleeping there, it goes, oh, maybe this isn't where Tom or Mary or Pat or whatever goes to sleep. Focus on your sleep, so do that. If you feel you can't relax in the evening, a good hot bath relaxes the muscles. It's not because you're bogging or dirty or anything. It just relaxes the muscles. Healthy eating. Unfortunately, snack, wine o'clock, gin o'clock, beer o'clock have really sort of kicked in because we've nothing else to do. Focus on your eating. Keep yourself hydrated. Plenty of water, plenty of fluids, and as far as possible, remain mentally and physically agile and active. Crosswords, puzzles, count. I never thought I'd hear myself saying count, and I'll be offering you all a glass of Complan next. Counting. Programs that or books that will make you focus on thought processes and keep your mental agility going. These are the type of things that will help. Right, Claire. What can you control? I've sort of mentioned this earlier. Focus on what you control. Because as I said, there are controllables and there are uncontrollables. And if they're uncontrollables and you try to control them, they will drain your confidence, make you feel uptight, and they will pour into your private life. Detach. Don't get emotionally caught up. It removes your concentration and your focus. If you're watching too much news, if you're watching too much of C19, and an awful lot of people are, you should watch the news once a day, no more. If you are getting emotionally caught up, your fears are coming to the fore because you're constantly watching Boris Johnson or Jeanette Cranky up in Scotland or Micheál Martin down in Dublin, and all they're talking about is doom and gloom and tightening up, and everything has to be tightened up. And then you have the two dolls up in Stormont, who are no better really, because everything is a negative. Everything is, you have to do it this way, you have to do it this way, you have to do it this way. Then they bring on these doctors that tell you have to stay at home, you have to stay at home, and then you find out they've been 3 weeks in Portugal with their wife when they're telling everybody else to stay at home. And then you bring on all these experts. Everything seems to be doom and gloom. You cannot sit and watch that all day and not be impacted. So try to detach yourself from it. Be aware of yourself and what is or has already impacted on you before, during, or after work, after what you've been doing in the house, after watching TV, all of these things. Be aware of yourself. Ask yourself the following. What meaning have I given this situation or concern? What is really pressing my buttons about this? Is there another way of looking at this? What would someone else make of this? If I was the outsider, what advice would I give somebody else in dealing with this situation? If this was evidence I was delivering in court, what grounds would I have to get a verdict? When you start to stop and ask yourself questions and take time to step back, it might only be a few seconds, but it breaks the cycle, and then you can look at things in a different way. Okay, Claire, thank you. Resiliency. It's not what happens to you, but what you make out of what happens to you that makes you resilient. It's your experiences and what you do with them and how they impact on you that can either make you be resilient or non-resilient. That's where we have to go with this. So it's not what happens to you, because things are going to happen to us, but it's what you do with what happens to you that makes the difference. Okay, Claire. So now, here's the thing. What about you? Ask these questions. Is there anything that you already do to help strengthen your resiliency? What is that? What is the one thing you could start doing to build your resiliency? What do you think that might be? How do you think you could help others be resilient? What would you do in that situation? Resilience is there. It's not given to one person and kept from another. It's what we do with it, how we shape it, how we use it positively or negatively for ourselves or others, and how we allow our experiences to impact on us and how we grow and develop from them. So listen, thank you very much for being patient. And I hope this at least gives you something to think about. But if there are questions or comments or observations, I'd be delighted to hear them. Thank you, and thank you for taking the time. And thank you, Claire, for all your help.
That was excellent. Oh, hold on, I'm all muted. I am, good. Thank you very much for all that information. It was extremely useful, and especially in these very challenging times. And it was great to have all those tools and techniques now that hopefully we can move forward with. I'm wondering in the chat box, is there any questions for Sean there? I don't have access to it at the minute. What do we see?
No questions through just yet, Mary.
And the other thing to say is Mary knows that this material, if you want access to it, feel free as organizations to share this with your service users. As I often say, I'm not precious about it. It's not all original thought. It's stuff that I've worked on, but if you think it would be helpful to look at it at a later stage, please feel free to ask for it.
And as well, within the RETHINK program, we run a 6-week CBT approach program, and that is all free of charge as well. So look out on our websites for that coming up over the next few months. The RETHINK program is, as I said before, funded by the National Lottery, and there's 3 organisations involved in it, who are the Bogside and Brandywell Health Forum, Arc Healthy Living Centre in Irvinstown, and Business in the Community as well. So those 6-week programs are run out all year round now for the next 2.5 years, and as I say, they're free of charge and very beneficial. So as I say, look out for them now coming up over the next few months as well. So Sean, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank you again.
Not at all,
and everyone else who has come on, and I hope to see you all soon.
Hi Mary, sorry, we just do have a question there through about the importance of meditation and tapping.
Okay, would you like to answer that, Sean?
Yeah, there's a number of elements that you can use. Tapping actually is a very good one because therapists would use that. It's also emotional reflex and tapping. And sometimes if you feel anxious and you feel your blood rate or your heart rate is up, if you tap to, and one of the basic tricks is tap to the level that your heart rate is at that time, and then gradually on your arm or on your face or on your cheek, bring in a normal heartbeat, or on your chest. That should begin to send a message. So boom, boom, boom. So if you're going boom, 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 try boom, 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 boom. You can do it to both sides of your face. That can help relax. So tapping is an excellent method to bring focus back. It brings focus back to where you should be. Meditation is important. Meditation works because we allow ourselves to become aware of where we are at a given time. I know an awful lot of meditation practices tell us to close out the noise, but actually if you bring the noise in and make it part of your meditation, it becomes less of an annoyance or a frustration. So meditation is one of those things where you just sit in your chair, and it can be as simple as your 2 feet on the floor, your 2 arms and hands on the arms of the chair, becoming aware of the weight of your body, closing your eyes, meditating either with music in the background or sounds in the background, or visualizing something, and visualizing that and keeping your breathing to an equal normal breath, deep breathing. And what it will relax the body. It will absolutely relax the body. But you can visualize, as I said, you can visualize yourself walking along a beach, listening to the sounds of the water, going across a bridge, walking in the countryside, listening to, in the visualization, the sounds of birds and animals. just being aware that you're in a good place and a nice spot where you can stop and relax and take stock, where it's peaceful. So all of those things can be tied into meditation. And the tapping is part of an emotional process and an emotional program, and it does help, you know, and it can be something as simple as just being aware. You're consciously aware, you're sensitized to the touch, you're sensitized to the sound, and it can bring down your anxiety levels.
Brilliant.
I have another question through there about overthinking too much due to anxiety
Yeah.
and worrying that it's got so severe, and anything that you can recommend to help with that then, please.
We don't overthink because of anxiety. Overthinking leads to fear. Fear leads to stress. Stress leads to anxiety. We overthink situations. Now, there's a number of things we can do there. We can imagine we've got a massive stop or pause button that we can hit in our mind's eye. We can then ask ourselves the question to step back and think, what is it we're thinking about? Where is our evidence for what we're thinking about? Is there evidence? What's the truth of it? Why am I giving time to this thought if it's not a true thought? Am I giving too much credence to it? Now, I have a set of notes that I can send on to Mary that can be shared with anybody that would want them along this field. But it's about really stepping back and thinking about your thinking. What are you overthinking about? What's causing that fear? What's causing that anxiety? Has something happened? Has something been said? Is it something you've watched? What is the truth of it? And it really is about trying to talk yourself down and out of it. But overthinking comes at the start of the stress and anxiety process. And an awful lot of people are overthinking at the minute because they don't have any other distractions. And sometimes it is about, if you can find a distraction in the home or elsewhere, getting up, not focusing constantly in your overthinking, but doing something that might give you a lift, might make you feel a bit more positive, might lift your humor or your mood a bit. Going away from it, given a solid half hour to something like that, stepping outside into the garden, stepping outside and listening, but trying to distract yourself from the overthinking by doing something different, something that might give you pleasure. And it might be something as simple as listening to music that you know will soothe you and bring you down. It might be something as simple as lifting up a book. It might be something as simple as doing something that gives you pleasure and taking a break from it. You break the cycle of it then. That then allows you the space, I suppose, to think about what have you been thinking about? What caused you to overthink? Where did that come from? And it can be something that just comes into your mind. It can be something that you've seen. It can be something that you've heard. It can be something that is said to you. But if people are interested, I can pass on notes to Mary Breslin on the areas of overthinking and anxiety. And you know, you're very welcome to have them.
That's fantastic, Sean, and we'll share them with you. So we have everyone's email address, and I can send them out for people who would like them.
That's no
Is there
problem.
any other?
There's just one final question. So, is there a good way to stop getting into your rant when speaking with your social circle, or any techniques for bringing the temperature of this type of conversation back down?
Right. Now, this is a big one at the moment, is, you know, that sense of getting into a rant. And normally it's because we feel that the other people in the conversation don't understand what we're saying, or they don't understand what we're getting anxious or exercised about. It sometimes is about going, look, I need to step back from the conversation. I need to take a break from the conversation because I can just feel myself ready to go into a rant. It's really up to the individual to go, hold on a minute. I'm getting frustrated here. I'm getting anxious here. I'm getting angry here. And it's about saying that and saying, look, I'm going to step back for a bit and take a breather before I continue, or before I have any further conversation. Because sometimes it can be, we don't feel that we're understood. I have clients who literally will sit, and when they're talking about something, I can see it taking root in their head. I can see suddenly bang, and I know exactly what is coming, because that's where their fear factor is, their insecurity factor is, their sense of not feeling heard, their sense of not feeling understood. So part and parcel of that is asking yourself, what is it that causes me to go into a rant? What is it that causes me to feel that I'm not valued or not heard or not understood, or people don't want to hear what I have to say? And that can come from different places. And maybe to do that before you go into a conversation, and to know what trips your buttons, what pushes your buttons about this. Because really, the rant is usually because we feel we're not in control, we're not being heard, we're not being understood, we're not being valued, we're not being listened to, and maybe somebody smirks or somebody smiles, and somebody's suddenly taking the piss out of us. And that can be a perception as well as a truth. So it's about maybe before going into that saying, right, what or who and how they do things usually tends to trigger me. What can I do about that? You can take a breath, you can take a step back, you can remove yourself from the conversation and take a breather before you go back on, and think about why you're getting into the position where you're letting loose, you're letting fly. So there's loads of, that is a big one. And honestly, even that answer that I'm giving isn't satisfactory really, but I also think I've notes somewhere on that. So I know exactly where the notes of anxiety are, the rant, but that's a very real thing for people, because they feel that other people just look at them and think and dismiss them. So it's about what triggers the rants. Think about what triggers you. Think about, is it the same person or the same things, or how people talk to you, or how people respond to you or not respond to you. All of those things come into play when it comes to a rant. And the majority of us have done it. Not me, obviously, just the majority of you.
Oh, obviously not, Sean. You would never do
that. I don't know if that helps, but those are the type of things. Just stepping back and thinking about it. So
no, that's fantastic, Sean. Thank you so much. Is there any more questions there, or is that us now?
I think that's everything. Just lots of thanks and people wanting to access the slides and the notes.
That's
well,
fine.
I'll ensure that after Sean sends them to me that I'll get them out. That's great. Okay, no. Sean, thank you so much as usual. So beneficial, the information, and practical and easy to follow as well, which is great. It's just about us now putting it into practice. So thanks again, Sean.
Listen, thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure. Thank you. Okay, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.